Live from Indianapolis, the Indiana Gubernatorial Debate, sponsored by the Indiana Debate Commission.
Good evening, and welcome to the Indiana Debate Commission's second gubernatorial debate of the fall campaign season. The debate is being televised from Ransburg Auditorium at the University of Indianapolis. We have three candidates running for governor. The winner will succeed Governor Mike Pence, who is a Republican and is the running mate of vice presidential running mate of Donald Trump. I'm your moderator, John Ketzenberger. I'm president of the Indiana Fiscal Policy Institute, which is a nonpartisan not-for-profit that conducts research into the state's tax policies and budget practices. For the next hour, the candidates will debate issues mostly focusing on jobs and the economy, areas of always major concern for all of us. Members of the public, and that is you, had the opportunity to submit questions to the Debate Commission about what concerns you. And most of our questions are drawn from those questions. All of the questions were approved by the Debate Commission, and none of the questions has been shared with any of the candidates in advance. So here are our candidates. Rex Bell is a Libertarian candidate. He is a small business owner. Eric Holcomb is the Republican candidate. He is the Indiana Lieutenant Governor. John Gregg is the Democratic candidate. He is the former Indiana House Speaker. The candidates' positions on the stage and the order in which they will answer the questions were determined by lot conducted by the Debate Commission. After I ask a question, each candidate will in turn have the opportunity to respond for 1 minute. Each candidate also will have a 30-second rebuttal period depending on the question. If a candidate exceeds the amount of time given for his response, I will have to ask him to stop. Before the final question, each candidate will be given an opportunity to address a topic of his choice. This allows the candidates to discuss a topic that they feel is important but hasn't been touched on in the questions, or that they can go back to at this point and discuss it and delve into it further. The candidates have agreed to a set of rules which includes no props or prepared notes. At this time, each candidate will have the opportunity to further introduce himself and make a 1-minute opening statement, starting with Mr. Bell.
Thank you, John. I would like to, first of all, thank the University of Indianapolis and also the Indiana Debate Commission for inviting us here. Especially would like to thank the Indiana Debate Commission for acknowledging that there are 3 candidates on the ballot. That doesn't happen with all of the media outlets, so we certainly appreciate it when we are acknowledged. Hoosiers have placed us on the ballot with their votes, and we think that they deserve to hear all of the options. I am Rex Bell. I'm from Hagerstown, Indiana. I have owned my own business, operated my own business for 42 years. I like to say in spite of the government instead of because of the government, and we plan on doing that further, and we think that we can take my knowledge of operating a small business and transfer that over into the operation of the government. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the University of Indianapolis and also to the Indiana Debate Commission and all those of you who are joining us, whether you're here or live streaming at home. Soon we will celebrate our 200th birthday on December 11th, our bicentennial, and we have blazed trails over the last 200 years. We have plowed our way into new frontiers and achieved amazing things once thought unthinkable. I would submit to you that there's a couple reasons why we've been able to make such progress, and also that over the last 12 years we've come further and faster than probably any other 12-year period throughout that 200. It's because of leadership, and it's because Hoosiers have come to not just set, but meet high expectations. And so over the course of the last 12 years, I have been just so proud to have been part of the leadership that ushered in that progress. And I look forward to talking about the issues of 12 years ago, leading up to this point, where we are today, and where we will be 12 years from now.
And next we'll hear from Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. I'm glad to see everybody here this evening. I'd also like to thank the University of Indianapolis. I would like to serve as our state's 51st governor. Tonight you'll see there are distinct differences between the candidates. I'd like you, if you would, to imagine having a governor that shows respect for all Hoosiers, that doesn't promote discrimination. Have a governor that focuses like a laser on the economy, on high-wage jobs, and attracting jobs, not scaring them away. I'd like you to imagine a governor that takes the politics out of education, that refocuses education on the students, that works for pre-kindergarten, and that realizes teaching to the test is a failure, and that teachers are part of the solution, not part of the problem. Imagine a governor who doesn't accept the status quo. Imagine, you don't have to imagine, this can be reality. We can elect a governor, and I have those skills to aim higher, to provide the leadership, and I have the experience, and we will work together and take the best ideas of Democrats, Republicans, and independents using my experience in the public, private, and academic sector, and have the vision and a written plan to lead us into our 201st year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gregg. Now to our questions. Our first question is from Samuel Watkins, and Samuel is a resident of Indianapolis.
Thanks. I believe the only solution to add jobs to our state is to create them ourselves. At the moment, our well-cared-for and educated kids must flee to other states for work. My question is not how you're going to bring jobs to Indiana, but how you're going to open up the portal for high school and college grads to innovate and create here rather than move away, because the jobs aren't going to move here.
Mr. Bell?
Well, you know, certainly that's a concern for everybody. It was a concern for me when my children were graduating and looking for jobs. We wanted to keep them here. We understand that government does not create jobs, as you mentioned. What we need to do is create a atmosphere where jobs can be created by citizens and by businesses. We're doing that. Our plan is to eliminate the property tax, do the same thing that government does now when it tries to attract businesses. It does away with the property taxes for just a very select few. We think we can do away with it for all. We think that we can remove some of the licensing restrictions that stand in the way of small business. Certainly small business is the main contributor of jobs in this state. And we think with those combinations, we can create an atmosphere where people can start businesses easily and businesses will want to locate in Indiana.
Well, the jobs are coming here in record numbers. I mentioned 200 years before we're about to celebrate our birthday. We have more people working in the private sector than in any time in our history. We have a 4.5% unemployment rate. We have a AAA credit rating. We live within our means as a state government. That's first and foremost the most important thing a state can do, is make it an attractive place for people who want to invest and to innovate and choose to do it here. The state's taken steps further, though. We have started to think about things regionally. Regional Cities Initiative that we just addressed in 3 parts of our state to try to make our communities vibrant communities. We've been rated on 2 different rankings as a top state in the country for millennials to come and work here, because the jobs are in fact there, and it's a low-cost state, so the dollar goes a lot further. So the state needs to make sure we keep our books in order to make it an attractive, predictable, credible place for folks to innovate, and it's happening.
We have a 35-point economic development plan, and as much as I would like to explain all 35 points, I don't think anybody would want to sit and listen to all of them tonight. So I would encourage you to look at our website and see those 35 points where we spell out in detail, where we talk about unleashing that entrepreneurial spirit, where we talk about focusing on small business growth, venture capital, and working with our existing businesses as well as attracting new businesses. The truth of the matter where Indiana is we right now have lost again in per capita income. We are 38th. Now what does that mean? That means for a family of 4 sitting down for supper tonight in Irvington that they make $7,000 less than the average American family. That's $150 a week. That affects your quality of life for many, many Hoosier families. So please check out our program. If we focus on the economy and not on divisive issues, we can work to make our per capita income in Indiana a better place.
I think I'm going to ask a question next, and it relates to this directly. My statistic is 36th among the 50 states in per capita income, but that was the measure that was put forth by Governor Daniels when he first took office as a sign of prosperity. Indiana has experienced job growth, there's no question, yet the personal income per capita remains fairly stagnant and has ranked 36th among the 50 states. So tell me, what does the state need to do to ensure that pay keeps up with job development? And Mr. Holcomb is first.
Well, we need to continue to do what we're doing and on steroids, and that's been our approach. We are tripling the attraction for high-tech companies than the rest of the nation. There's a reason why Salesforce has just decided to move 800 more jobs to the state of Indiana. Our dollar goes a lot further in Indiana. Our low cost of living goes a lot further in Indiana than some of those states are comparing us to. Our wages have gone up each and every year since 2005, when we were hovering around $17 an hour, to 2015, where we're now over $21 an hour. And when you factor in the jobs that the IEDC has been, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation has been involved with, it's 26% higher than that. So we need to continue to diversify, as we are, our economy, logistics and agribusiness and biosciences, high tech, not just manufacturing. We are #1 in the nation in manufacturing, and we'll continue to lean into advanced manufacturing. But the programs that we are having in place right now, the workforce development programs, they are working and we're getting traction.
Mr. Gregg.
Hoosiers are working harder and harder and getting less and less. Talk to your neighbors. You'll see that many of them are working 2 jobs. My background is a former small businessman and working for 2 Fortune 500 companies. That's why we put together a proposal that focuses on high-wage jobs. And that's where, as governor, I'll stay focused. And that's in 5 areas. We've got high-growth, high-wage job potential. It's in agribusiness, but it's in life sciences and biosciences. It's also in information technology. It's in 21st century logistics, and it's in advanced manufacturing. If we stay focused on those areas, take politics out of education, and better align our educational system with our job demands, we can fill that skilled jobs gap that we've got, and we can move Indiana forward. The status quo isn't getting it. That's not acceptable anymore. We can do better in Indiana.
Well, certainly, you know, when we're talking about higher wages, what can we do to increase wages? Job competition is the very best thing we can do for that. When we attract more businesses, businesses have to compete for workers. That's what drives wages up. As Eric mentioned, you know, we do have a more affordable standard of living in Indiana, which is a help. And then when we raise the wages by drawing more businesses in, it's the best thing we can do and keep government's hands out of it altogether. That's something that we can accomplish without asking the government for help, without having the government put more regulations on us.
Our next question, and we've received many questions on the subject of the future of our state forests. One was from our next questioner, who is Samantha Baran of Westfield.
There has been a significant increase in commercial logging in our state forests since 2002. As a mother, I am concerned that our state forests won't be around long enough for my children and their children to enjoy. Do you believe our state forests should be managed for public purposes such as recreation and wildlife habitat, or as wood supply for the timber industry?
And Mr. Gregg?
Thank you. We have an we have an environmental plan that's one of 12 policy initiatives that we've got that addresses this issue. I've been to many areas in the Hoosier State Forest, from Brown County all the way to the southern part of the state, and have seen some of the things where we've had a lot of devastation in our forest area. I realize that the timber industry is a huge industry in Indiana, and it's a very vital and important industry. It's part of our agribusiness, but I think we have to review it. We are allowing a lot more timbering than we have in the past. It's gone from about saving almost just allowing it on 10% of the acreage to now we're up to 40% of the acreage, and we're selling it below market cost. That's just wrong. So the state's competing with private business. That shouldn't be the way things should do. So we need to review that, take note of how much that we are logging on these states, and quit competing with private business. It's just wrong what we're doing right now.
Mr. Bell?
Well, I think we can do both. I don't think we have to choose one or the other. Certainly, there is a need to protect part of that, but we also need to understand that there's a need to harvest it, or we end up with, trees eventually grow up and fall down. It's something we have to take care of. We look at things as we grow corn. We think nothing about that, but because we're in a situation, we don't think in long term. It's all right to grow one thing and harvest it, but not another. So certainly trees, that is something we grow, something we need to harvest. I would agree that we need to be more careful in the park system, but I don't think we need to get in a situation where we're saying absolutely nothing out of the parks. I think that rangers and people that study that have a better handle on what trees need to go and what trees need to stay.
Well, as a state, we can be, and we are being good stewards on both fronts. I'm particularly proud of our Department of Natural Resources and the Forestry Department within. Many folks that live in the urban areas don't realize that Indiana is 83% farm and forest. And we have done a good job from a Department of Natural Resources perspective of maintaining and sustaining our private and public, lands. We've also taken a couple steps further. Over the last 9 years, we've had 2 different independent firms audit our forestry program, and we have met the national and international standards. So on this front, I could not be prouder of our Department of Natural Resources personnel.
Our next question is that we had 2 questioners who brought up issues involving the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which was perceived as discriminatory, and the state's inaction on LGBT rights. So do you think the Religious Freedom Restoration Act has hurt the state in competing for jobs? Mr. Bell?
Well, it was certainly raised as that issue, that there was going to be a lot of damage done from it. I don't know that we've seen that. I don't agree with passing that. I don't believe that you give certain groups of people rights that other people don't have. You can't tell, because of your religious objections you can discriminate, but for other reasons you can't. It was kind of I thought, an unnecessary law that drew a lot of attention, something that has been it's been overruled now anyway, so it's something I hope we can put behind us and move on from that. I would certainly like to see a state where all people are treated equally and all people have the same rights. I think we need to understand that.
Mr. Holcomb.
Well, over the last year, I've had the privilege and the ability to travel to all 92 counties throughout the state of Indiana, and I can tell you I've received a lot of feedback. There are good people on both ends of this issue who have differing opinions, contrasting opinions, and what we witnessed over this last year during the General Assembly were both sides of the issue did not come to any consensus or any agreement, made no progress. In fact, they said, both sides said that they would not seek a compromise. And then we had a committee hearing some months ago, and again, it came back that there was no compromise or no inching toward any kind of agreement. We have in Indiana local ordinances that allow folks to address the economic development side of this with local HROs, and if local communities seek to take advantage of those, they have been, and if they seek not to, they haven't been, and that's been the balance. We've had a record tourism year in 2015 after we got through this.
Mr. Gregg.
You know, the truth is this issue has hurt us economically. We need to show respect to all Hoosiers. It's more than economic, it's about respect. There's this distinct difference between my opponent and I in this matter. Let me tell you, the first thing we would do as governor, we would sign an executive order that would give civil rights protection to the members of the LGBT community that work for the state of Indiana. We would also seek for the legislature to pass legislation granting civil rights protection and hate crimes for members of the LGBT community. And in our economic plan, we tell how we would create a marketing fund to work and undo the damage. And unlike the current administration, we'd hire an Indiana firm to do that. We think there's Indiana firms that can do this. So, and the ordinances that we hear about, those can't happen because those were banned by the legislature. So Salesforce came to Indiana because Indianapolis under Mayor Ballard had passed a local ordinance. That power has been taken away now by the legislature.
I'd like to have a quick follow-up. It's not a precise rebuttal, but in 30 seconds, today the 7th District Federal Court in a separate case regarding rights upheld the lower court's stay or preliminary injunction allowing for Syrians to be relocated into the state of Indiana. So in 30 seconds, would each of you tell me what you think of the programs and Governor Pence's decision to try to stop that program, and what you think about going forward? Mr. Bell.
Well, I disagree with Governor Pence's take on that we could put one group of people, lump them together. One thing libertarians have always looked at is everybody's an individual. And when you take a state and say we have one nationality that we're going to block, I think that's wrong. We need to look at people as individuals. Certainly, if we have somebody a known terrorist or criminal coming in, we have remedies for that. But to place an entire nation and group them all together, it just didn't sit well, and something that we would look to
Mr. Holcomb.
end.
What is happening in Syria is heartbreaking at the least, and we know through intelligence that ISIS continues to try to do not only Americans harm, but others harm as well. And so while I understand where Governor Pence was when he made the decision, balancing, making sure that we're keeping Americans safe, and when you hear the FBI director stand up before the country and say, we don't know if they're infiltrating this network, I understand where he came from and the oath that he took, but we'll continue to honor the court's decision as this works through.
Mr. Gregg.
Yes, these lawsuits that the state of Indiana files cost thousands of our tax dollars. And I'm a lawyer, and I don't even like to see them spending money on stuff like this. It's a waste of our precious tax dollars. This could be decided on a case-by-case basis, and should be, to see if these people are thoroughly vetted. I disagreed with what the governor had done because it is wrong to ban someone based on their religion. I was raised a Methodist. What do we do if they decide they're going to ban all Methodists from moving into Indiana? Or the next thing, we're going to ban Catholics. It's wrong to ban people based on their ethnicity, their race, their religion, and their nation of origin. It's just wrong.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Stephanie Grabo. Stephanie is a small business owner from Carmel.
Thank you. I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment, and I also believe that all gun purchasers should undergo a criminal background check. Where do each of the candidates stand on the issue of universal background checks for all gun sales?
Mr. Holcomb.
I believe we have it about right where we are now. My wife, who was with me today, is a certified handgun shooting and safety instructor. She became one after we were broken into twice, the last time as we were sleeping. I am a staunch defender of the Second Amendment and understand the reason why it's number 2.
Mr. Gregg.
I also am a strong defender of the Second Amendment. I live on a farm. I'm a gun owner. I first went hunting with my grandfather when I was 8 years of age. But I believe in responsible gun ownership, which I think does call into a little common sense. For the life of me, I can't understand why we don't want some dude that we won't let on an airplane go and buy a semi-automatic weapon, or why someone that's a violent criminal or has mental health issues go and buy some semi-automatic weapon. I mean, when that person gets a gun and does something, it jeopardizes old John's right to own a gun. And I think we need a little common sense.
Mr. Bell.
Well, I'm a strong supporter not only of the Second Amendment, but also of our natural right of self-defense. I'm concerned when the government comes out and says, you know, we're going to start doing background checks on somebody that we might believe shouldn't own a gun. You know, that could very well be a criminal. That could also be somebody that disagrees with us politically. You know, we could very well say, well, you know, I worry about these libertarians. They don't toe the line like they should. Maybe we shouldn't allow them to have guns. So, you know, any time the government treads on the Second Amendment, we need to be very, very careful, very, very wary of what they're doing. The best laid intentions could backfire on us.
Thank you. Here's a question on regional development. At Governor Pence's request, the General Assembly this year created a program that spent $126 million in funds for local projects to 3 different regions of the state. This program was paid for with one-time tax amnesty payments. The question is, do you think this regional development program should continue, and if so, how should it be funded? If not, tell me what the state should do to ensure that rural, suburban, and urban areas enjoy the benefits of economic development. Mr. Gregg?
Well, Eric, I want you to hang on. I think the Regional Cities program is a good idea. And I'd certainly be remiss if I didn't congratulate the governor on his regional cities plans. What I think we can do a better job of, though, is where Indiana is lacking, and we put this forward in our proposal on local government on one of our white papers, and that's about local control. The legislature's really started micromanaging all local levels of government: cities, towns, counties, school boards. They need flexibility on how they spend and use their local resources, which are precious and very, very limited. This legislature has got to realize that that government that governs best is the one that's closest to them. That's their county commissioners, their mayors, their city council, and their local school board. We've got to stop micromanaging, and we've got to start allowing a little flexibility and some local controls for our communities. Thriving communities, as the Indiana University study pointed out, is essential to good growth in Indiana.
Mr. Bell.
Well, you know, when you talk about the government that governs best, while it might be the one closest to you, we also believe it's the one that governs least. And what we have with the regional cities development is, again, government taking tax dollars and picking winners and losers, sending money to one region, not to another. You know, we are very much in favor of allowing people to keep their money invested as they see fit. You know, local EDCs, you know, certainly should exist, but they should be funded by willing investors connecting to businesses that want to locate or want to start up. So as far as the government taking our tax money and picking different regions, different locations, different companies, you know, we think that's something that's better left to the people than turning it over to the government.
I think government functions best when we work together from a state perspective and a local perspective, and that's exactly what this Regional Cities Initiative drives at. Also, stellar communities and Main Street programs. I think that this is the way of the future. We need to do more of it. This is calling for communities to take an inventory of their assets and their liabilities. We understand that we're much stronger together. No urban area, as the study pointed out, no urban area can do it on their own. They need suburban, they need urban buy-in. So if Ball State is close to a neighboring county, the neighboring county ought to try to take advantage of all the assets that come with that. And so I will push to do more of this. This is government working with each other, and it's about a 15-to-1 ratio return from a state investment with the philanthropic community, the local community, the business community, and the state's perspective. And what we see is we can better tap into that synergy.
I want to follow up with the second question here. 30 seconds for each of you. What can the state do to ensure that rural, urban, and suburban areas all enjoy the benefits of economic development? How does that work? Mr. Gregg.
You know, one of the key things I think we have to do for all of Indiana is emphasize broadband. There are 14% of the people in the state of Indiana today that do not have broadband connectivity, which means high-speed internet or dependable cell service. That is so essential for our suburban and rural communities. It is all over the state. You can be 10 miles south of Bloomington on I-69, and you can be there and you don't have a signal and you're outside one of the state's premier educational institutions. Broadband is essential. Infrastructure, good roads and bridges, and a long-time plan. Those are all essential elements.
Thank you. Mr.
Areas. Those are areas that have different needs and different wants. When we start saying, well, the state's going to step in and micromanage and bring one business to one place or another business to another, that's not what the government should be doing. What the government should be doing is allowing people to make these decisions on their own. Certainly keeping the roads up. That's something that we could do a much better job if we put all of the road use taxes onto the roads. There's just so much that government could help by staying out of the way. And we believe that communities and cities will make their own decisions. This is what we want.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, again, I think this was the Regional Cities Initiative in order to try to create real quality of place and vibrant communities. It wasn't just a single community, it was a region that the program is driving toward. But of course it's about connecting one to the other. Broadband is a fantastic example of not just access, but speed. The question is always who is going to pay for it. The federal government has some programs that we should pursue that help on the rural front. But last time I checked, we have 92 counties, and when you get into the southern Indiana terrain, the hilly, rocky terrain, it becomes very, very expensive, and we need to do more as a state to make sure our communities are broadband ready, first of all, so the private sector addresses it.
Some people had questions about Indiana's infrastructure. After a bridge gave out and a section of I-65 had to be closed last fall, the governor and the legislature stepped up spending on maintenance for the Indiana's roads and bridges. The legislature will be revisiting the issue this year. What do you think it will take to ensure that for the state's infrastructure can be kept in good repair, and how would you pay for it? Mr. Bell.
Well, I've mentioned before, I think one of the most important things we can do is insist that all of our road use taxes are spent on the roads at the local level, to state level, and at the federal level. Certainly, Indiana does a better job than some states, but we don't do very good getting our federal money back, and local money is, not always applied to the roads. We see a lot of road use taxes spent on different things, walking trails, some museums, that sort of thing. We think our most important thing we can do is apply all the road use taxes to the roads. If we find out then it's not enough, then we can refigure from there. But I think we'd be pleasantly surprised.
Mr. Holcomb.
Well, last year, 2015, the U.S. Department of Transportation rated Indiana as #1 in terms of road condition. Just this year, CNBC released a study that had us as #1 in terms of our infrastructure program. We have invested a lot over the last decade plus, $11 billion over the last 10 years in order to get to the place that we are. We started projects that were sitting on the shelves for years and years and years, I-69, Fort to Port, Hoosier Heartland, upgrading US 31. We now find ourselves at the place coming out of this last legislative session, where we have agreed to take inventory of all of our wants and all of our needs, all of our deficiencies, and put everything on the table in order to pay for all those wants and or those needs. So I look forward to seeing that report later this year. It was an agreement that we all had during this session to keep everything on the table. And next session, we will start addressing how, in fact, are we going to pay for a long-term, data-driven, not political infrastructure program.
And Mr. Gregg.
I want to invite those people down to drive on the roads I've been driving that says we've got the best roads in Indiana. I'll take them about anywhere with me. The truth of the matter is Indiana's falling further and further behind. Logistics is one of our 5 largest industries in the state of Indiana. My running mate, Christina Hale, and I put together a $3.2 billion infrastructure plan, $3.2 billion additional dollars, where we take money, and the money is split into 2 pots. Roads and bridges, because 1 in 5 bridges is going to be obsolete in the next 18 years. The other 60% goes to quality of life issues: drinking water, industrial water, storm sewers, wastewater, cultural trails, green spaces, broadband. We need to come up with a plan that addresses our infrastructure longer than for 2 years or 4 years. This is a huge economic hindrance that we've got in Indiana. Check out our infrastructure plan. No new taxes, and it doesn't hurt our bond rating one bit at all.
Now we come to the section of the segment of the debate where the candidates can speak on a topic of their choice. Mr. Gregg will go first, and we'll talk for up to 1 minute. He will be followed by Mr. Bell on that and the same topic for a maximum of 2 minutes. Mr. Holcomb then will speak on that topic for up to 2 minutes. Then we will close out that topic with 1 minute rebuttal by Mr. Gregg. The other 2 candidates will then have the same opportunity to speak on a topic of their choice following the normal rotation and format. So, Mr. Gregg, you have a minute to open.
Thank you. You know, you can't discuss the economy without talking about education. As a former president of Vincennes University, I know firsthand the value of early childhood development, pre-kindergarten. 42 states have pre-kindergarten. The statistics are irrefutable. A student that has pre-kindergarten is more likely to graduate from high school, attend post-secondary education, less likely to be jailed or on drugs, will make $160,000 a year more, and they live a healthier and longer lifestyle. Folks, this is money invested in the future, just like in our infrastructure. That's why the Indiana Chamber of Commerce lists this as one of their 5 top goals. This is why when I have met with the executives at Lilly, Cummins, Hillenbrand, Salesforce, they say we've got to do pre-kindergarten. The time is now. Let's quit studying it. Let's do it. We can do it by prioritizing child, using existing dollars, and without raising taxes.
Mr. Bell, you have 2 minutes on this topic.
Well, certainly education is important to all of us. I think we need to stop and take a look at what Indiana offers for education now. You know, we're K through 12 right now. Anybody that wants it, certainly, you know, colleges, community colleges, people can attend for a very reasonable cost. I won't say free, but certainly if somebody's willing to invest $10,000, $8,000, $20,000, they can get a 2-year or 4-year degree. So I think we have come up with that. You know, I think we provide that for people very well now. You know, when we talk about pre-K, this is another issue where government is reaching farther into the family. And when we talk about $160,000 a year, that's quite a jump, but I don't see that happening. I don't see that when we talk about pre-K, we'll see better results from family involvement than we will from turning your children over at a younger age to the government. This is what we're looking for. We need to make government more affordable so that families can stay home if they need to, if they want to, and raise their children. You know, certainly there are communities helps, there are churches, there are businesses if they want to help the families, help their employees out with the, you know, with a pre-K of some type. But to put it in to the government where it will eventually will end up being mandatory. This kindergarten started out as optional, and there's a push now to make it mandatory. Certainly the same thing would happen with pre-K. We need to re-examine the proper role of government and get it out of the family that quick.
Thank you. Mr. Holcomb, 2 minutes.
Well, I am all in favor of expanding pre-K. It's important to recognize at the outset that we didn't even have a pilot program before recently. And so we've come all these years with nothing, and now we have a program in place where we offered it through the FSSA and through vouchers to be available for the most disadvantaged among us. And I think that's where we need to continue to expand. I think we need to move the folks that are in the very back of the line, the folks that need the extra help the most, certainly not make it mandatory, but the folks that are at a certain poverty level, we need to make sure we're doing all we can to move them to the front of the line. And so I'm all in favor of expanding that program. Right now it's in 5 different counties: Lake, Allen, Marion, Madison, and Vandenberg and Jackson. So there's a diverse collection of counties. We can continue to expand across the state. The question is always, who's going to pay for it and how much is it? How much does it cost not to address this? And so I, again, am all in favor of expanding methodically, keeping in consideration cost and capacity. Some schools I talk to tell me, we're not ready for this yet. And so don't make this mandatory. Don't just throw a $500 million program on us and ask us to comply. There are avenues available right now, and we can go back to the same people that already applied that we had to turn away. We need to start ushering those folks in.
And Mr. Gregg, 1 minute to sum it up.
There's only 1,500 students being served by that pilot program. There's 80,000 4-year-olds in the state of Indiana. We've got the money through what's called reversions, monies that aren't spent. There's over $230 million, and to phase this in over 3 years for the first year cost $150 million. We'll never get all 100% of the students because it's not mandatory. We've got that money. Plus, the current administration turned down $80 million of federal money because they were upset with the president. Out of these 78,500 students, ask yourself, how many of them have lost opportunities? I don't want to look that parent in the eye and say, your kid can't go to pre-kindergarten. We've got the money to do it. If we can't invest it now and in our children, what have we become? We can do better. The status quo is not getting it one bit at all. I want to do away with the line, and it's just like, I can't believe this, Kentucky has pre-kindergarten. Where I'm from, that's something we laugh over.
Thank you. Mr. Bell, you have 1 minute to introduce a topic of your choice.
Well, the topic of my choice would be, why was this country founded? Because the government we were under at the time was way too big. Since the government was founded, it's continued to grow. The one we have now gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I like to say, try to name 3 things that government doesn't tax or regulate. It's a very hard thing to do. The government is into every aspect of our life, and we see that the other 2 parties are talking now about making government even bigger. One will say, well, we're not going to make it as big as the other guys are going to make it, but it's still a matter of growth. We believe that people are capable of running their own life. They're capable of making their own decisions, and that's what we would strive to do. Get out of the way of business, get out of the way of the parents when they try to educate their children, get out of the way of the teachers. We can do a lot better job than we're doing now by making government smaller.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holcomb, 2 minutes.
Attracting talent to the state of Indiana, of course, speaks right to Rex's point, and that's why I am proud of the fact that Indiana was ranked as the number 4 freest state in the country. That means that the government isn't so much on our backs and involved in our everyday affairs. Every dollar that we take from the taxpayer takes a little bit of freedom away from that taxpayer, and so I think we have to be overly cautious and very deliberate and transparent about what we are spending the taxpayer dollars on. We found ourselves pre-2005 spending more money than we were bringing in, and that put us in a backseat position when it came to competing for the talent and the jobs around the world. And so I'll continue to be very cautious about any new, and we've got our tax and our regulatory climate in a uber competitive position right now. And so I think Rex is right. We need to be overly cautious when government intrudes into our daily lives, and we have been over the last decade.
Mr. Gregg, 2 minutes.
Well, Indiana, I will agree, through a lot of work of a lot of people, going back to the last years that I was speaker, nearly 16 years ago, we started making changes in our tax structure in Indiana, and they continued on through Governor Daniels. We are now the 4th or 5th best state to do business in, but we're 46th in new business startups. So think of this, we got a good climate, but yet we're near the bottom when it comes to starting new businesses. There's a reason for this. We've got to focus on the economy, and we've got a laser-like focus on the economy, creating high-wage jobs. And we do have to take the politics out of education if we're going to move Indiana forward. It is so important that we focus our economic activities in these areas that are high growth and high-wage jobs, where Hoosiers see their lifestyles changed. We need to be talking about the economy. We need to be talking about our infrastructure and having a real plan. We've come up with plans that are on our website at gregforgovernor.com, and there's over 12 of them. There's over 18,000 words that lay out in details how we can do this. We talk also about how we need to focus on the work, the education, the infrastructure, and talk about having an adult conversation on our drug epidemic, something that's destroying the very fiber of our communities. We need to admit this and admit what we're doing is not working. We need to have an adult conversation and get the law enforcement, the prosecutors and the judges and the mental health people and the docs and the workforce development people and the education people and sit down and have a discussion on what we can do to stop this that's gripping our city. There's our whole state. There is a place for government. And this is an area we need to be talking about this very election. That's why we talk about it in our campaign every day. It's not a drug problem, it's an epidemic.
And Mr. Bell, 1 minute to finish the topic.
Well, you know, I would, Eric mentioned that we were the 4th freest state. I would point out that with the federal government where it is right now, the bar is very low on that. I would like to be the 1st freest state. I think that's where we need to be. I think that's what we should all be striving for. You know, when we mention, and every time somebody mentions spending $1 billion, we need to remember that takes $600 from every family in Indiana. So when you talk about $3 billion, $4 billion, $5 billion, that's the growth of government. That's taking away your money, it's taking away your freedom, taking away your right to make decisions. It's just... It is so important that we get a hold of this government, that we get it pushed back where it belongs, instead of running to it every day and saying, what can you do for me? I need more money. Take some money from my neighbor and give it to me and help control my decisions. We need to stop that.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Holcomb, you have 1 minute to introduce a topic.
Yeah, hate to beat a dead horse, but I think the second question was a really insightful one about the future of our state, and couldn't agree more with where you were driving us all to, and that is when we assess what we need to improve on in Indiana, one of the main areas is how do we attract more talent. Not just how do we retain the talent that we groom at our world-class universities, scattered all throughout the state of Indiana, but how do we get it? How do we get that talent to reside and go to work at Nestle and go to work at GE Aviation and Boston Scientific and Cook and Lilly, these international companies? How do we get Indiana known as a place of ingenuity and investment and have an international flair. And there's a lot of steps we can take. Regional Cities Initiative is one of them, investing in our entrepreneurs and our innovators with our plan to invest $8 billion into that on that front. These are areas where if we're going to create separation between us and the rest of the pack, we need to do more here, and we are.
Mr. Gregg, you have 2 minutes on the topic.
You know, the truth of the matter is our wages in Indiana are again growing less than the state of Kentucky. And you don't need to laugh, but that's nothing for us to brag on in Indiana. My background of having worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies and living in rural Indiana, I know how Hoosiers all across the state struggle. And the first thing we do is we have to be a welcoming state, and we're not right now. And we have to show respect to all people. And we've got to focus on the economy, and we've got to focus on our infrastructure. If you look at our economic plan, you'll see we talk about increasing our venture capital tax credit. We talk about allowing the sale of that. We talk about establishing a growth and opportunity fund for those entrepreneurs, those young people of all ages, but so many young people that are so excited. Have business incubators all across the state. I think these are the things that we need to be talking about. We need to be focusing on how education and talent is the key. There's a gentleman that lives in Indianapolis who runs something called the Lumina Foundation. His name's Jamie Marasotis, and he's written this fantastic book that just gets me excited. It's called Talent, and I'd encourage you to look at it. And he tells about if the state of Indiana has the opportunity in the next 5 years to create 300,000 new jobs, living wage jobs. But if we don't have the talent, they're going to leave. And fellow Hoosiers, they're not leaving central Indiana or Indiana. They're not leaving the Midwest. They might stop on either one of the coasts, but odds are they'll go across the state, or they'll go across either one of the oceans. We've got to focus on the economy going forward, and not just on the minimum wage jobs. We're going to focus on those high wage, high growth jobs, taking the best ideas of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and using my experience from the public, private, and academic sector, we can move Indiana ahead and not be in the bottom of the rung all the time.
Mr. Bell, you have 2 minutes on the topic.
Well, you know, certainly the future of the state's very important to all of us, I would hope. And how are we going to best do that? Do we let the government make these decisions about what's going to happen, what businesses we're going to attract? You know, they talk about attracting large businesses, which is very important, but we also need to remember that small businesses are the backbone of the state, where most employees are. I think that we can attract all businesses, large and small, by creating a better atmosphere, a more business-friendly atmosphere. That's the type of thing that's going to create more jobs. 300,000, that's not bad. Why not 500,000? You know, the sky's the limit when you open the thing up and say every business is welcome here, and you're going to have the lowest operating cost because you're not going to be paying any property taxes. We can attract those. When we do that and businesses start competing for wages are going to go up. It's just a win-win situation that we should be jumping on. You know, there is so much that we can do, so much that we can gain by getting government to step back and allow people to work on their own, allow people to develop their own businesses, allow businesses to decide they want to come to Indiana. We don't have to worry about one business leaving when there's 2 waiting in line to get in. So I think that's what we can do. I don't think that we need to look for the government to fix this. I think this is something we can fix ourselves and ask the government to just step back.
Mr. Holcomb, 1 minute to close the topic.
Well, Indiana has a 4.5% unemployment rate. That's something that most of our neighbors can't claim. Certainly those around the country were lower than the national average. CEO magazine has rated Indiana the #1 state in the Midwest. That's something to do business. That's something Kentucky can't claim. We've been rated the #1 state for small business. That's something Kentucky can't claim. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the NFIB from Indiana, the National Federation of Independent Businesses that oversee the concerns of small businesses throughout the state. They are, in fact, the real lifeblood of our communities and offering the opportunities everywhere you look. So we need to make sure that we are continuing to keep our state way out in front when it comes to where folks around the world and the country are looking to relocate their business. And the Hondas and the GE Aviations and the Cummins will continue to grow when we keep our fiscal house in order.
Okay, thank you. And now to our final question of the night. And this will be a 30-second response from each of you and serve as the closing statement. The question is, why would you be the best candidate to lead Indiana into the economic future? Mr. Gregg.
It's because I started out by saying I want to serve as governor, not be governor. It's have a servant's heart. I give the credit of that to my wife. It's dealing with those topics that seem almost impossible to deal with, but we got to tackle them. That's why I want to be governor. It's having a vision. It's bringing people together. It's showing those leadership qualities. That's why we've talked to people all across the state, hundreds of people, and over 120 people helped us come up with a written plan. You know, I've made a payroll.
Mr. Gregg, your time is up. 30 seconds. Mr. Bell.
What was the question again?
Why would you be the best candidate?
See, you wasn't done listening to me, John.
Why would you be the best candidate to lead Indiana into its economic future?
I think I'd be the best candidate because I have operated a business for 42 years. I know what it takes to run a business. I know what it takes to attract a business. I know what businesses face when they run up against a tax or unnecessary regulation. I believe that I have the ability and the knowledge to arrange Indiana so that businesses would want to come to Indiana, and I hope you'll give me a chance to do that.
And Mr. Holcomb.
Well, for the very reason of the overall purpose of this debate on jobs and economy, I stepped forward and answered the call when former Governor Mitch Daniels ran. Our state was in somewhat of a fiscal mess at that point, and we turned the state around, got us moving in the right direction, and lo and behold, now we find ourselves with more people working than ever before in our state history, a AAA credit rating, and a low unemployment rate. So I will continue to focus on those things that got us this far and focus on the future. Economic development, community development, striving for excellence in education, and making sure we're delivering good government at a great taxpayer value.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for being here to share your views on these important issues. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We want to give a special thanks to WIPB at Ball State University for producing this program, the University of Indianapolis for its extraordinary support in hosting this debate, and to the League of Women Voters for keeping the clock. I want to remind you, the viewers, that you can still submit questions that you would put to the candidates in the one remaining gubernatorial debate and the one U.S. Senate debate that has been scheduled. You can do that at Indiana Debate Commission's website at indianadebatecommission.com. I'm John Ketzenberger, and on behalf of the Indiana Debate Commission, thank you and good night.
Thank you.